Good evening, everyone. As folks filter into the webinar, feel free to drop a note in the chat. Tell us where you're zooming in from tonight. People are still coming in, but we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks, everybody, for joining us again. My name is Audra Labert. I'm the Director of Communications here at CDTC. And we're really excited about tonight. This is our second annual webinar update, and we have some very special guests tonight and a lot of great information. If you haven't already, be sure to watch last year's videos of the webinars, as this year is intended to supplement that information. And then we'll be sending out links and resources mentioned in the webinar tonight after via email for those of you who registered. I have the pleasure of watching many hikers' journeys online. So those who tag us and contribute stories, photos, and show us about their trials and successes along the trail. So I hope you think of CDTC as a partner along the way and keep in touch. Your shared experiences are a really important part of how we help others connect with the CDT experience. And in addition to the miles of solitude and open space, we hope you also enjoy the CDT Gateway communities and spend time connecting with them. Most of the communities along the divide, or many of them, excuse me, have taken special steps to welcome CDT hikers, whether it's through a hiker box or some local trail magic, and we look forward to continuing those positive relationships. And should you happen on a trail crew or federal agency personnel out there this year, maybe you can spare them a little magic and take the time to show gratitude to those who've been out on the ground, swinging Pulaskis, packing supplies, digging tread, spending all day at the end of a saw, spiking out in snow, thunderstorms, and heat. As public land users, we are indebted to those folks who work to build and maintain the trails we all love. So we'll go to the next slide. So this next slide is an overview of this evening. And as I mentioned, we have some special guests from Glacier National Park and more CDT folks to give you really important information and updates. At the end, stick around. We'll be having a staff panel where you can ask your questions. Please feel free to, throughout the webinar, use the chat to ask your questions, or I think we have a Q&A going too. So you can also ask your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those questions after with our staff panel. Want to take a moment to acknowledge CDTC Trail Information Program Manager Danny Knoll, who's also the shuttle switchboard operator and sometimes driver who put this all together tonight. So thank you. He's the mastermind behind a lot of the advancements in trail information that hikers have seen in the last year or so, from text alerts to displaying real-time registration information on our website. So if you haven't checked out all the cool features on our website, feel free to do that. And thanks, Danny. And then next slide. Yeah, so for my part, last but not least, we'd like you to join us in acknowledging that the lands on which the CDT traverses across its entire 3,100 miles are the homelands of Indigenous and Native people and tribal nations. These traditional stewards of the lands have called these places home for millennia and still call them home today. Many were persecuted or killed through genocide and were removed from these homelands. In all of our work, we honor these people, past, present, and future, who continue to live, hold sacred, and steward all of the landscapes across which the Continental Divide Scenic Trail traverses. So again, thank you all for joining us. I see many of you are already using the chat, and we're going to kick things off with Dan Carter, CDTC Trail and Lands Conservation Manager. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Audra. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you all there in the chat. So I'm Dan Carter. I'm the Trail and Lands Conservation Program Manager for CDTC. I'm based down in New Mexico, but work up and down the whole trail and mostly trail completion and infrastructure projects. So next few slides, I'm just going to kind of dive in to sort of why the CDT is the CDT, how we got here, kind of the intent and vision, and how it slowly came to be the creation that it is now, at 3,100 miles long, mostly complete. So the intent of the CDT, a lot of thought and intention goes into developing a trail, especially one that is 3,100 miles long and carries the prestige of a national scenic trail. The CDT was envisioned not only as a premier recreation resource, but to quote from the study report from 1976, will showcase the rich heritage and life of the Rocky Mountains in the southwestern United States, where along the way, the landscape overwhelms everyone who passes that way. And a continuous travel way from Canada to Mexico would lend an aura to the trail impossible to obtain otherwise. And then switching from metaphysical to the physical, it's developed to the minimal standard to provide for recreation and have minimal impact on the environment. So with all that together, a lot of intent and thought went into this, and the CDT isn't just a trail, but an experience of the whole Divide landscape. Today, the CDT is one of 11 national scenic trails, each with its own unique intention, experience, and management guidelines grown out of much thought and hard work. And I kind of open up with that just to sort of like set the tone of that it's much more than just the recreation and just the physical trail and the management and completion. That there's a lot of thought that goes into this beyond just those things. But to physically create the CDT, the initial approach was to utilize as many existing trails, minimally developed roads, and rights of ways as possible, as long as they meet the National Scenic Trail standards. So when the CDT was established in 1978, 62% of the CDT was cobbled together with these existing routes. Some of you will still see those remnants of some of those existing routes that are probably look the same as they did back in 1978. And some of them have been changed quite significantly. To quote a few folks I hear, few lines that I hear along the trail, but the actual divide is over there, or you're not even on the divide. So, and why is the trail not actually on the divide? Part of that is a planning corridor up to 50 miles from the physical divide was created to help make completing the remaining portions of the trail a bit more feasible. And why so far away from the physical divide? It's the Continental Divide, right? It's where it should be. But staying true to the actual spine of the divide may be undesirable due to hazardous and prohibitive topography for recreation and trail construction, potentially high costs and damage to the environment, and also the land ownership patterns and incompatible uses along the divide can be challenging. So with that, it gives us a lot of latitude to put the trail where it's going to be more sustainable and more enjoyable in the long run. So even with the wide planning corridor and vast amounts of public lands, approximately 6% of the trail pass through private lands. Most of these miles are on roads open to the public. In some portions, we are fortunate to have right-of-way easements across private and state lands that allow for access. When these easements are established, the landowner typically determines the conditions of the use. Sometimes no camping or fires are common conditions of these easements. So we please ask that you don't jeopardize access by breaking in these rules and being considerate of our neighbors and our private landowners who we share the trail with at times. I think the next slide. So diving a little bit deeper into the physical side of the trail with the trail management. So the CDT, it has consistent management trail-wide or consistent guidance trail-wide. However, multiple agencies and jurisdiction manage the lands across which the trail passes and the 5 states which it passes. So as you can see from the intro video, it's quite a diverse landscape that we have, from like deserts to mountains, Forest Service to Park Service to BLM, state and local tribal governments. So there are flexible standards that allow the trail and management to respond to these diverse landscapes, the use patterns, and management needs across the divide. So think about managing for like grazing, forest management, or preservation of the national park, while also considering the recreational needs of the CDT. So each agency and field unit may manage the trails slightly differently depending on these factors. So you may be orienteering across the Boot Hill of New Mexico or an alpine traverse, or following a single track through Glacier National Park or sidewalk through Rollins. Also, with an increase in use and impacts from climate change and other factors, more sustainable tread is being constructed and management approaches refined. So one refinement over the last few years has been installing walk-through and equestrian gates in the Boot Hill. So no more Tetanus gates down there for all y'all that might be visiting this year. Another cue from the video that I recognize. It's a dated picture. Also, with the management of the trail, there's many types of users. So the trail experience on the CDT could range from an hour's outing to several weeks, from 1 mile to several hundred miles or 1,000 miles, and from strenuous backpacking to leisurely strolling. So from the inception of the CDT, through hikers and through riders, we're expected to be a small percentage of the total use. And today that's still the case. Hikers and equestrians are the primary types of users, but however, many other compatible use types exist along the divide, and trail management must balance these sometimes competing and incompatible uses. So alternates. I love this. The Trail of Alternates has no official alternates. Um, so the CDT has garnered the reputation of choosing your own adventure. However, there are not any official alternates, but several popular routes that have been created by users over the years, which is very much in the spirit of what the CDT is, and an opportunity to see the landscape that's out there, from the communities to the very remote stretches of it. However, these alternate routes may not be actively managed for public access or recreation. They may not even be on public lands, or may not even be a trail. Um, for example, the Big Sky alternate follows a private road, and some cattle tanks are located on private land, many of which are fed by private wells. So we just ask, when you're deviating from the official route or the red line, please be prepared and know the land ownership status where you plan to go, and take alternate routes as you at your own risk. And know the rules and regulations of these areas, and keep in mind some alternates may cross private land or not allow camping. We can go to the next slide, Danny. Kind of mentioned the gaps earlier with the private easements. And approximately 5% of the CDT is incomplete, which would come a long ways from that 62% back in 1978. And most of that incomplete sections follow major roadways, thinking about Muddy Pass in Colorado, or the highway west of Silver City down in New Mexico. So these are the major gaps of the CDT, which you can check out on the trail completion page, on the CDTC trail completion page. So due to private land and sensitive wildlife and habitat concerns, some of these gaps can take a long time to complete. But work in Cuba, El Malpais, and Lordsburg is leading to gap completion in the near future. Another approximately 23% of the trail follow motorized routes, such as forest roads, motorized trails, and ranch roads. Motorized use is not the intent of the CDT, but is the current location due to existing infrastructure. And in some cases where motorized use is low and the route is minimally developed, the CDT experience is still achieved on these routes. However, long-term, locating the CDT on non-motorized trails is the goal. And with a diverse set of partners, CDTC, we continue to complete and maintain the trail with collaborative planning efforts. So hopefully that just kind of sets you up for some expectations of what you might encounter on the trail, and why it's there and why it is in the state it's in at the moment. And with that, I will pass it on to Aldra.
Audrey, you're muted.
Thank you. Next, we're very fortunate to have some staff from Glacier National Park with us. We're very excited to be working closely with Glacier to provide information and resources for y'all. So with us tonight are Brian McKeon, Wilderness Program Manager, and Kate McHugh, Wilderness Coordinator. And side note, Kate recently wrote a blog for CDTC about her experience hiking the CDT in Glacier. And you can find it on the CDT website and on Substack and other social media. So thank you all for joining us.
Thanks very much for having us, Audra.
And one quick note, Elle, I'm going to ask you to share your screen, please. If you have the slides up. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulty. Just like 1 second, folks. Or Elle, could you make me host real quick?
Yes, can do, Audra. 1 sec.
Thanks. So Brian, Kate, feel free to address folks as we get rolling here with your slide.
As soon as we see them.
So,
One second with the visual.
I'll kick us off, Brian, before we talk about permits. Thanks to all of you for doing your research before hiking in Glacier. Brian and I and the staff at Glacier have been working closely with the CDT Coalition to help improve through hikers' experience in the park. And then, as you all have probably been following in the news, federal employment and structures have been changing rapidly. And so we just ask, as you plan for your hike and as we get closer to the summer hiking season, that you maintain flexibility. That's what we're doing. And so we commit to communicating actively with the CDT Coalition on any changes to expect in Glacier. And tonight, Brian and I are going to present to you some of the business as usual pieces of hiking in Glacier. But again, please be flexible and then check back for updates.
Do you want me to start
All
from
right.
here, Kate?
All set?
We haven't coordinated this very well, but yeah, I guess I can start with this. Okay. So yeah, as Kate was just talking about what is happening now, we did, just an update, we did get permission to start hiring seasonal employees yesterday. So we're kind of scrambling for that, but I suspect there's going to be some delays in getting those employees on board. So early season hikers, it's going to be it might be a little bit of a challenge getting permits, but we're kind of starting to roll now. So we'll see how that goes. As far as camping in Glacier, it requires a permit for front country and for backcountry or wilderness camping. And the front country walk-in hiker-biker campsites are available on the CDT at Two Medicine, and Many Glacier is they're not going to allow front country hiker-biker sites there this year, and we'll go into that later. But that is typically a place where you can do hiker-biker. So Cut Bank Campground is another small campground north of Two Medicine. And Rising Sun and St. Mary are going to the Sun Road. Rising Sun is closer to the trail, but they are also within shooting distance of it. Wilderness camping, which is kind of my bailiwick, is wilderness permit is required. There's two ways to do it: advanced reservations. In advanced reservations, I would suggest really only for southbound hikers, because you know where you're going to start. And so we start those lotteries March 1st for large groups. You guys are probably not going to have to deal with that unless you have a group of 9 or 12 people. And then there's a standard group lottery, which is 1 to 8 people. And that will start in other words, you apply for the lottery on March 15th. And then you would get, if you get in there, we take 3,000 of the applicants. And if you are lucky enough to get one of those slots, then you get assigned a date and time when you can go in and try to get your permit. or your reservation. And then the general on sale is basically advanced reservations that you can get. Anybody can just log in to the rec.gov site and get a reservation, whatever's available, from May 1st through September 30th. Trying to see it. I'm not getting all of that below that on my screen. Walk-in wilderness permits may be available the day before or the day of the trip start date, and that's a lot of CDTers are going to be utilizing that. The walk-in permits. It's one of those things where you can get a walk-in permit. The availability is really varied. There's typically only one walk-in site available at any given campground. However, if people don't use advanced reservation sites in those campgrounds, then they will become walk-in sites when at that day before or day of time. So I think the big message for CDT hikers is to really group up as much as you can, and we can get 4 people per site. And if you can do that, then it will really help you get a site. I know there's a lot of times when you have to kind of hang out in town and wait for those to come up, but it's just know that the main thing with everything we do is, because we get so much visitation and so much use, everything we do is designed to protect the resource and keep it in the shape it is. I was camped at Elizabeth Lake a few years ago, and a guy came in. He said, "I haven't been here in 30 years," and he said that from what he remembers, nothing has really changed. So, and that's kind of the goal, is to make it that way. But we totally get that you guys are. It's tough to get permits in Glacier for anybody. So just the permit writers that you encounter are going to try their best to help you out, but sometimes it's just there's only so many people that can fit in the backcountry, and so you just have to be patient with them. Is there more below this slide? I'm only seeing the walk-in wilderness permits. Is there something below that?
The next slide's the mini glacier slide.
Okay. So I guess I'm done with my section then.
Okay. Great. So Audra, if you want to forward. Many Glacier is a valley close to the northern terminus of the CDT. And this summer it'll be closed for construction. And it does provide a critical linkage for any wilderness hikers, but especially CDT hikers. Over the last couple of years, we've tried to expand hiker-biker walk-in campsites in the front country to give especially CDT hikers a safe and legal place to stay while they're patching together a wilderness permit. So the loss of Mini Glacier Valley this year is significant in that there will be more restrictions on wilderness camping that passes through the Mini Glacier Valley. So we recognize that early. And we are working to create an opportunity for wilderness camping legally in Mini Glacier Valley as part of the wilderness permit system. So some of you who came through in the fall, or had friends that came through in the fall, experienced that closure. Essentially, all of the infrastructure in Mini Glacier Valley is closed beyond the Mini Glacier Hotel, and that closure includes the normal campground and the Swift Current Motel. This summer also, private vehicle access into the valley will be restricted from July 1st until September 21st. So my advice to you is to plan hikes that don't start or end in Mini Glacier. It'll be easiest for you to walk through Mini Glacier Valley. And then as far as camping in Mini Glacier Valley, because the standard campsite is closed, there is no public campground outside of the wilderness system. We're working on identifying an alternate location so that when you apply for a wilderness permit, you'll be able to book a wilderness camping spot in Mini Glacier Valley, just like you would at, say, 50 Mountain Campground or at Granite. So we're still working through some of those details, but when it comes time to apply for permits, that will be an option that's offered. So just be aware, Many Glacier won't be that drop-in front country hiker biker site this year. We're going to be dealing with it as part of the wilderness system. And that's all I had.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. And sorry, everyone, I lost internet connection there for a moment. The worst part is I missed Dan's talking about alternates, which is my favorite CDT topic. But my name is Danny Knoll. I am the CDTC Trail Information Manager, and I want to talk to you all about registration. Registration is something that was new to us last year, and it is a way that you can just let us know that you're hiking. It's completely voluntary. It's not a permit, but it gives us a lot of really good information that we can use to get funding. Oftentimes, the press will contact us. They want to know how many hikers are on trail. It helps us monitor trends and see where people are starting and when they are starting. It is not a permit, doesn't act as a permit, so just keep that in mind. But how to register, you go to our website, cdtcoalition.org. I think I have .com there. It's cdtcoalition.org/register. And yeah, we encourage anyone that's spending one or more nights on the CDT to register. So if you're a section hiker or a through hiker, please register with us. Last year, we had 670 hikers register. In return, what we will do is we'll give you a free hang tag. These can be used to hang on your backpack, as you can see in the picture on the screen. And a lot of people just use them as souvenirs. The Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail also have very similar programs. So a lot of people like to collect them and just keep them as a keepsake. And also in return is on that registration form, you can sign up for text alerts, which I will talk about in a little bit. But oftentimes people are wondering when they can register. Registration for 2025 is now open, so you can go ahead and register. What I would recommend, though, is wait until you are almost certain of your start date. And the reason why is we now have on our website start dates by location. So if you're starting on the northern terminus or the southern terminus, you can actually see how many people are planning to start on each day. I think this is going to be especially beneficial for those of you starting in Glacier National Park due to the permits. And as Kate and Brian mentioned, permits are kind of in limited supply. A lot of people are looking to get permits, and oftentimes CDT hikers are actually competing with one another to get those permits. So hopefully by this chart that you find on our website, when you register, you can see when other hikers are registering. So for instance, this is actually registrations from this year in Glacier National Park. We have about 6 people planning to start on the 15th. So yeah, you may want to pick a different day just to give yourself a little leeway and potentially get a better chance to get a walk-in permit if you're unable to get advanced permits. Do keep in mind this does not include the general public, so we have no way to know how many people are going to attempt to walk in from the general public, but it just gives you an idea of how many through hikers are starting on those days. The bottom left is that blue hang tag. That was 2024, and this year, the 2025 color is yellow. So anyone hiking this year that registers, just make sure you have proof of that registration, and you're going to go on trail to pick those up. Must pick them up in person. So there's 4 different locations at the southern terminus with our shuttle drivers, Grand Lake, Colorado at the Grand Lake Center, the BLM field office in Rawlins, and then finally Glacier National Park, assuming that they are filling out permits in their permit offices as they did last year. Next, I want to touch on alerts and incidences. This alert system is something that was also new to us last year. We really want to be able to reach you all when something happens on the trail. So for the most part, those are wildfires that may close the trail, but we've had trail closures for various other reasons, including wildlife and other things. So on that registration form, which was on the last slide, there is a question if you would like to opt to receive text alerts, email alerts, or both. And so you can opt to receive those or not. It's completely up to you. One note, if you want SMS text alerts, it's US numbers only. So if you have a foreign or an international phone number, you may want to wait until if you're going to get a US number, like a SIM card or something like that, when you come here to hike. If you're not going to get one, then you can always give us your email. Any valid email will work. To the right of the screen is an example. This is actually a real life example of a fire we had last year at the Gila National Forest. It closed a few miles of the trail. And so we will send these out as soon as we get word. Do keep in mind, on the ground, like these alerts may be coming a day, maybe even 2 days after. We send these out as soon as we hear, but sometimes we don't hear right away. So just keep that in mind. Please adhere to any on-the-ground law enforcement because you're probably hearing about fires in your area than we are. Another note I want to make is the mileage. So we are limited to 160 characters in these alerts. So the mileage that we use as reference points are from our official mileage from our interactive map. They do differ from other apps such as Far Out. We've gotten a lot of requests wanting to put the Far Out miles on there, and we can't do that just because we're so limited to the number of characters we can use, but also a lot of people are using a lot of different resources with different mileages. We just can't put them all in this small text message. But every time you receive one of these, there will be a link. So you can always click that link, and in that link, it's going to go to our closure and alert page on our website, and we'll have all more detailed information, but also those far out mileages to help you. We do realize and recognize that most CDT hikers are using that Far Out app, so hopefully that is helpful for you all. I also want to talk about incidences. In my opinion, the CDT is actually a relatively safe place, but we are not immune to emergencies and crime and potentially dangerous situations. So we have this incident report form. The key is if you are in danger, if there's an emergency or anything, call 911, call local law enforcement. The CDTC is not a law enforcement agency. We actually have no jurisdiction whatsoever. So please call your local law enforcement or emergency services. And then as soon as you get to safety, or maybe the next day or something like that, if something has happened, we also would like to know about it. And so that's why we have that incident report form. And so it could be a day or two after. But yeah, please fill that out, and you can find that on our website. Just because we like to document things. One thing that is unique about the trail is you could walk through 3 to 4 different law enforcement jurisdictions in a single day. And sometimes those law enforcement districts aren't very privy to the CDT or kind of the nature of how people are moving up and down. So we can monitor trends and we can document these things. And then if law enforcement request these report forms for us, we can provide them at a later time just to keep everyone safer. Yeah, and the most important thing there is if you see something on trail, say something. If you see unusual behavior or someone making you uncomfortable or any number of things, please report it. That's going to keep you and everyone else safer. All right. I also want to share our interactive map. This is just a screenshot, so it's static and doesn't move, but you can find our interactive map using this QR code on our website. This was developed by our GIS specialist, Zach Bumgarner, almost 2 years ago now. I think it's such a great resource and tool, so I just want to bring everyone's attention to it. Even if you're not planning to use it in the field, you can use it at home. It does work on your phone via a web browser, but I just want to walk you through this really quick. In the top left corner, there's going to be a layer icon, and that's going to bring up a couple of dozen different layers. I highly recommend, if you're planning to hike the CDT this year, toggle those on and off and just see what they all do. I do want to point out some important ones. The red line here is the CDT. You can toggle on post offices, parking locations, gateway communities, trailhead access. There's snow layers. Even this yellow line here is a a former burn, a former wildfire in the Black Range that is now just it's not closed, it's just an alert that you're walking through a burn area. We will have closures on this map as well. So if you want to see what areas of the CDT are currently closed, those are going to be on this map. And if you zoom in, you'll be able to see those half-mile mileage markers. So it's so much information. Even the boot heel cache boxes, the water cache boxes are on here. And these little squares actually correspond with our CDT map set. So if you've gone to our website and you have downloaded our digital map set to print out, those correspond here on our interactive map. So you can see where all those line up. So yeah, just a tremendous great resource to help you plan. You can share it with your friends and family if they're going to be following along in your hikes. It's a really great resource to use. And with that, I will pass it over back to Audra.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. So we get a lot of questions about people that want to give back to the trail to support CDTC, to support the work on the ground and in communities. And so really just quite simply, there are kind of three major ways. And you can donate money. Right now we're actually trying to raise about $45,000 for on-the-ground maintenance projects this summer. And those monetary gifts have the biggest impact. So for those of you that are compelled, we're getting like a lot of those questions right now. These are some of those ways. You can donate time. So maybe it's after your hike, or if you're section hiking, we've actually had people that have hiked and volunteered in the same season. But it's a great way to stay connected to the CDT and a community of individuals who's like-minded and wants to steward the trail. Volunteer projects are live, and there can be really fun, actually, as well as getting some work done. And this year, for each project attended, you'll be entered to win a Yeti cooler, which is a pretty awesome bonus. And then you can donate your voice, especially right now as we prepare to head to hike the hill next week. We're really encouraging as many folks as possible to share their valuable CDT experiences, whether you're a hiker or in the community, that we can take your voice to DC with us and express to our nation's leadership how important these spaces are. So if you're looking this year, you might be focused on hiking, and that's okay, but we'd love you to stay engaged, and these are some great ways to do that. So that is all for me. I'm going to pass it to Liz Schmidt, who's our Community and Outreach Program Manager.
Hey everyone, and thanks for being here this evening. I'm Liz Schmidt. I'm the Community and Outreach Program Manager for the CDTC based in Denver, Colorado. And I'm so excited to be here today to talk about one of the most anticipated events and then some along the trail for us as trail season rolls around, CDT Trail Days. So for those who might be unfamiliar, CDT Trail Days is the coalition's annual signature event in Silver City, New Mexico. It happens every year on Earth Day weekend in April, and it brings together hikers, outdoor brands, trail organizations, artists, stewardship partners, and the local community to celebrate the trail and those who enjoy it. It's a chance to connect with trail community, get gear repaired or freshened up, enjoy live music, food, and fun activities. Trail Days will take place on Friday, April 18th through Sunday, April 20th in Silver City, as I mentioned, and it is the first designated gateway community of the Continental Divide Trail. And this year will be our 10-year anniversary of Trail Days, which is really exciting. This weekend comes alive with the energy of hikers from all over the world. I even saw some of you enter where you're tuning in from different countries. So the local community really welcomes us with open arms. The website link to our Trail Days site is listed here on this slide, and it'll also be sent as a follow-up, but it's listed on our events page on our website as well if you want to check it out a little bit earlier. We'll have fun activities all weekend, starting with Friday, April 18th. Our weekend kicks off at the Silco Theater. It's a very historic, very cool theater on Main Street, Silver City. With our Cultural Connection speaker series, we'll be celebrating the rich history, diverse voices, and lots of different stories of the CDT and its surrounding communities. It'll feature speakers from Indigenous communities, artists, dark sky educators and astronomers, outdoor advocates, and long-distance hikers who really share their unique perspectives on conservation, culture, and connection to the land. Speaker bios to come, but there is a preview on our website of our speakers this year, so be sure to take a look. And then it will be followed by a kickoff party at the Little Toad Creek Brewery, just right down the street, really easy commute from the Silco Theater. We'll have live music, drinks, food, a $10 all-you-can-eat hiker buffet, and a raffle with many fun prizes from our sponsors and partners. And rumor has it, a special raffle item that may be a pie from one of CDTC's own, baked with love, and green chili and apples. And dogs, oh my gosh, so many dogs come to Trail Days. It's the best. And then Saturday, April 19th is the big vendor festival. This includes live music, a DJ. We'll have some storytelling opportunities through the local radio station, fun activities from gear sponsors, gear repair, gear for purchase, local community vendors and partners, and even some visitors from our trail towns and gateway communities north of Silver City. So it's going to be really fun. We'll also have a free breakfast available for hikers on Saturday morning while supplies last. So we'll be sure to update that information for you all so you can be sure to get there on time. And we'll also have a beer garden on site from our friends at Open Space Brewery in Santa Clara, along with some other local food options. Then in the evening, after you're done napping or hanging out in town, doing town chores, we'll be hosting a dark sky party / dark sky viewing party at the local Silver City Waterworks building. We'll be sharing lots of stories and some stargazing, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss how and why the dark sky is important and engaging to the CDT. And then finishing up Trail Days weekend, we'll be hosting a stewardship event day on Sunday, April 20th, along with community hikes. One hosted actually by Oboes up in Montana, far from New Mexico, but friendly folks to connect with and get excited about if you're going northbound. Yes, there will be hikes on the CDT, but there'll also be an in-town historical tour of Silver City, which is fun if you're interested in learning more about the first Gateway Community's town history and tour of murals, and you don't want to hike any more than you need to, which is totally understandable. Now let's talk about one of the biggest questions. Where can you camp during Trail Days? Many hikers do choose to stay in town through local lodging. Shout out to the Murray and the Palace hotels right in town. But we're excited to share that our friends at the Silver City Waterworks are generously hosting hikers for the third year in a row, free of charge. Camping will be available Thursday, April 17th through Sunday, April 20th. Like I mentioned, camping is free for hikers, providing a welcoming space for you all to rest, connect, and enjoy the Trail Days festivities. Amenities include a full kitchen, so if there's anything you want to meal prep or just prep in general, there's lockers you can put your stuff in, composting toilets. The lockers do have padlocks for valuables, so you can always leave things there. Registration opens next Friday, March 1st. It will be listed on our website, and we recommend you reserve your spot early. A huge thanks to Silver City Waterworks for their hospitality. And if you're coming in a group, consider setting up a shared base camp to make it easier to meet up with friends. And it'll be an option to include once registration is open next week. And this, of course, will all be shared once we share all the resources after tonight's webinar. So we'll be sure to share a link with that. So Trail Days is really a chance to celebrate the trail you love and to connect with the people who make these trail communities so special. So whether you're looking for advice, support, or just a great time, this is really a can't miss event that our team is happy to help support and answer any questions that you might have if you happen to be down in the area during trail days. I'm even sporting a shirt tonight by our friends at Town Shirt that our staff will be wearing during Trail Days weekend for easy identification. So please say hello. And then next slide. Okay, so Trail Days might be CDTC's signature event, but we do have fun community events all along the entire trail, especially thinking about those who will be hiking Sobo. There is also a Trail Days in Leadville, Colorado, and also working on details right now in Grants, New Mexico for you. So the events listed here are just a snippet of what's to come, but I do want to cover a few, including the weekend before in Lordsburg, New Mexico, which for some of you, you will be visiting twice if you're taking the shuttle. It is called Get Outdoors Hidalgo Day with free camping at their local park. It's called Veterans Park, and it will also include food trucks with vouchers for hikers, a DJ, and fun giveaways. It's right on the trail as you're making your way into town, so highly encourage you to stop, as Lordsburg is part of the greater Hidalgo County, our most recent gateway community. Sobo Trail Days in Leadville. It's an annual event that the town of Leadville organizes every September. Details to come on there. I don't have exact dates, but if anyone's interested in learning more, I'm happy to answer specific questions. But it's really a labor of love from the community. It's very DIY. There's bilingual speakers. There's a trivia night. It's really fun to be in Leadville during Sobo Trail Days. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're planning your hike to be in Leadville in September. Anaconda, another one of our gateway communities, hosts hiker nights for Sobo and Nobo hikers. Again, dates TBD, but for Sobo hikers, there's typically a hiker night in June, and then for Nobo hikers, there's typically a hiker night in August, and these take place at the local hostel called Pintler's Portal, and they're amazing community partners. We love working with them, and vice versa. They love meeting new CDT hikers. And then there's also, a ton of other community festivals. I'm just thinking of some off the top of my head. Rollins, Wyoming has an Adventure Fest in July. South Fork will be celebrating an event in June. Pinedale has an ongoing art stop at the Visitor Center. And so, yeah, there's a ton of other festivals and events along the way, and they're just waiting to welcome all of you. So keep that in mind. And we, of course, keep our socials and events updated on our website. But really, I highly encourage hikers to take the time and get to know the communities that you're passing through. Some people have tailored businesses for you, and there's much history in this part of the country, and traveling through on the CDT is truly a unique experience. So hope to see you at Trail Days, and if not at Trail Days, at another event on the trail. Oh, that's still me. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, well, that covers mostly our presentation portion of the evening. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up to our Q&A for our panel. I know a few of you have put questions in the chat throughout the evening, so we've been tracking that. I'll be fielding those to our staff. And then I know there's a couple in the chat as well. So if you do have questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature or the chat, and we will track those to ask our staff. But just starting off, I'm gonna kick it off with Dan. I think this might be a question for you. Will the easements be well marked, or is it just on far out?
To my knowledge, the ones that go through private easements, they are marked. I can think of one here in New Mexico on the official route that is marked as you enter into that. The ones through state land easements are not marked, but it's where the trail is. So, and I don't think any of the alternates that have private land issues are on far out any longer, such as the Big Sky alternate. Those have been removed because of those issues. So if you're on the official red line, then yes, it will be marked, or it's not applicable if you're, as long as you stay on the trail there. So
Awesome. I do have quite a few questions that are probably geared towards the Glacier National Park folks. So, Brian, just wondering, I'm just going to go in order of the ones that came in, and Danny and Teresa, feel free to jump in here too. But northbound PCT hikers can no longer cross into Canada as an option for returning home. Has there been any indication that this might also affect NOBO CBT hikers wishing to hike into the Waterton town site?
Yeah, I can take that. So as far as we know, there's no changes. There is a port of entry there with kiosk. If you're going northbound, what you do is you actually cross in and you call Canadian Border Services once you get there. If you don't have cell reception at the border, you're allowed to walk into Waterton and use their payphones. Make sure you have your passport and any documentation that you may need. They could deny you entry at that point. I haven't heard of that happening. I don't know what you would have to do then, maybe turn around and walk back. But that's the process for going north. For going south, you would use what's called the Roam app or one of the kiosks in Waterton, and then you would report to U.S. Customs, and then you could walk through. So we haven't heard any changes. That's the one big difference with the PCT. There's no port of entry on the northern terminus of the PCT. So I don't anticipate changes, but if we hear of anything, we'll certainly let you know.
Awesome. And then another one for Kate and Brian or Danny. Is it ever possible to do advanced reservations for glacier sites that are still in winter status? Seems like some don't switch over until pretty late.
Yeah, that you can't do an advanced reservation for those. If you do walk in and a site is in winter status, for instance, you can still get that on a walk-in basis. So say you have some a couple of sites or a couple of campgrounds along that route, and one of the campgrounds, like 50 Mountain Campground, which is high elevation, doesn't typically open until August 1st. But if it's snow covered and in winter status, then you could pick that up on your permit when you pick up the permit on a walk-in basis. You need a bear canister. There's a couple more things that go with that, but for the most part, you can do it that way.
Awesome. And similar to that vein, is there a better chance of getting a walk-up glacier permit before June 15th?
Yeah, the availability is limited because the advanced reservations don't begin until June 15th. So we open for summer status. I mean, you can go before that too, but you're not going to be able to get very far. But May 1st, we open for summer status. So any campgrounds that are open, you can pick up on a walk-in basis. And then those winter status campgrounds, just know that, May 1st, high elevation campsites, you're going to be in serious winter mountaineering conditions. You're still dealing with avalanches. It's not for the faint of heart. Stream crossings are going to be treacherous. What happens a lot of times is people set out on these treks and then they end up road walking most of the glacier section early season.
Great. And will there be permitting done at 2 Medicine?
Yes, this year.
Awesome. All right. The next question, is there a future where there is a unified permit like the one the PCT has?
I can take that one. We actually have talked a lot about that, but the challenges that we have four really iconic national parks, or three national parks that are iconic and one national monument that doesn't require a permit, El Malpais National Monument in New Mexico. But with Rocky Mountain, Glacier, and Yellowstone, the use patterns are so high that it'd be really difficult because of the variability of when hikers come through. I think as we continue to work together with the Park Service, we'll start figuring out what are those sweet spots that we can figure it out. But I think to be determined, and hopefully to come in the future, some other kind of easier way of getting permits. But what we have found is the variability of people's hiking schedules. Even on the PCT, they're discovering this, that it makes it really almost impossible to stick to a schedule, and then that messes up all your permits anyway. So it's just highly variable. So it's we'll continue to work on finding something that is a little bit more user friendly, but also protects the resource and make sure that we're also abiding by our agency rules, which are really important to follow.
Awesome. We have several more questions, but I just want to be cognizant on time. But the next one is, do you anticipate delays in bridge installation in Glacier because of staffing shortages this year?
I can take that one. Right now, it is like hot off the press that we're authorized to hire seasonal employees. But what that's happened is a massive backlog for our human resources system. And so right now, we're expecting delayed start dates for seasonal employees across the boards. And that could very well affect bridge installation or any sort of trail crew business. So I would check back. The Wilderness Permit Office maintains live updates on what's in and what's out. But I would anticipate, yes, we will probably see delays in facilities going in.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate.
Liz, I just wanted to point out a couple of questions about dispersed camping that are probably pretty important
Great.
to ask. Sorry, we just had a couple, so maybe we still have Kate and Brian. Is dispersed camping allowed in Glacier?
Sure. I can start that, and Brian, you can chime in. And so there are designated campsites along the CDT in Glacier, which I know is kind of jarring coming out of the Bob Marshall wilderness. It's a very different wilderness experience. So the two kinds of campsites we have in Glacier are front country campsites, and we have expanded hiker biker access for people to be able to walk in and to stay at that auto campground and have a safe place on foot that they can count on. The second type of site is a designated wilderness campground, and Glacier has those sites, and they have campgrounds, they have food prep areas, they have food hanging poles in them, and then they have some sort of pit toilet. And so we've gone to that system to protect other resources in the park, fragile alpine environments, grizzly bears. So you can expect that kind of wilderness camping experience. It can be quite social, but we maintain the wilderness between campsites that way. Brian, anything else?
I would just say, I mean, we do have undesignated camping. Mostly, we are basically a designated camping park, but we try to have opportunities for other kinds of experiences. And so the Nyack-Coal Creek area, which is nowhere near the CDT, is one of those areas. So anything along the CDT, there would be no undesignated camping.
Awesome. And then another question, other permits required outside of Glacier National Park?
Yeah. If you're hiking on Blackfeet lands, which if you're coming from East Glacier into the Two Medicine area, you're required to get a tribal recreation permit. Trying to think, I don't think anywhere else along the trail you would need that. say, I guess you'd have to check with the Blackfeet, but if you're road walking, you're technically on their lands. I don't know if they consider that recreating or not, but it might be worth checking into.
Great. And just so, because we still have you, Kate and Brian, what's the best online resource for snow levels in Glacier for Sobo hikers trying to determine a reasonable start date?
We can tag team that one, Kate. Kate's Wilderness Rangers, they're out checking trails and, checking for trail status and so forth. And then we put that into a system, and it's an imperfect system because everybody wants to know, like, what is it right now, and sometimes, people are out there, and typically they're on a circuit. So it might take a little while to get to all these places. And so it doesn't get updated as much as it gets updated as much as it can, put it that way.
The other thing that we have to use, especially for early season conditions before we've got boots on the ground, is SNOWTEL data and some high elevation weather stations. And so if the CDT Coalition doesn't have quick access to those, I can follow up and provide you links to the SNOWTELs.
One more other thing, I found there's a couple of these, and this one's called Snow Valuator, and what it does is it's like it's real-time photos, or you can see where the snowpack is, and it's really useful. We've had it kind of ground truth with a guy who was a geography professor, and he was out hiking, and it's pretty good. So I think I'll put the link in the chat. Just might be a fun thing to play with. It's not like we can't take responsibility if it's not right, but it's been shown to be pretty good. So I think I've got that in there, haven't I? No, I haven't. Let's see. Okay, there it is.
Awesome. Thank you both. I feel like that generally covers a lot of the Glacier questions we have. So I'm going to move on to any comments or questions about Sobo shuttle services for the boot heel.
Yeah, so we will likely be providing shuttle services. What I would recommend doing is grouping up if you are southbound. Most southbounders get down to Lordsburg area kind of in October and November. So group up and then contact us, and we'll try to find you a driver. Usually there might be like a 3-person minimum. It's just very expensive to run down to the monument, and so it just has to be worth the driver's time. But that's what I would recommend doing. Or we can also keep a list and try to get people grouped up if you are hiking solo or something, to get people rides down there. I do see a couple questions about that, and yeah, that is just something that's really challenging. There's just not a whole lot of hikers in that area at that time. So yeah, we want to make it as accessible as possible, but feel free to reach out to us. We'll try our best to get you rides or options to and from the Crazy Cook Monument.
Well, and Danny, do you want to mention too that this year we have a shuttle vehicle? We've purchased a shuttle vehicle, so we are a little bit more flexible in that we don't have to have a rental vehicle or some other thing. So it might be a little bit easier this year. I think it's also still just dependent on drivers, but we have access to those as well. But we are really thrilled that we have a shuttle vehicle this year.
Okay, and last question. I'm actually going to tie 2 in together because I think both could be accounted for. But some folks asked about non-glacier permits. So potentially other national parks that might need permits, and also where folks may need to carry a bear canister if someone wants to answer that dual question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So permits are required for overnight camping in Rocky Mountain National Park, where a bear canister is required. Yellowstone National Park, no bear canister is required. As we talked about Glacier National Park, Brian mentioned the Blackfeet Reservation. The Blackfeet Reservation is actually a really simple permit to acquire because all you need after April 1st, if you go out their website, you get the permit. I think it's $20. It's good for the entire year. You don't need to tell them what days you're going to be there. You just need to have it on you. An electronic version is fine, one per person. Most of the trail north of New Mexico, there's likely going to be a forest order that you must either hang or have a bear canister for your food. So just make sure that you're properly storing your food. A bear canister is a really easy way to do that. So you're always kind of in compliance using a bear canister. Although maybe Brian and Kate can, I think there's some kind of weird thing in Glacier with a bear can, because you might have to hang them there. I can't remember. Help me out, Brian.
Well, I know the wilderness rangers, some of them like you to hang it, and one of the reasons for this is if you have one, and the feeling is that if you put it by the regular food prep area on the ground, people are going to look at that and say, "Oh, I don't have to hang my food because this person has this there." I've never really bought into that, but and I actually had to deal with one of the manufacturers of the bear canister, and I think there's not a legal responsibility to do that. I don't know, Kate, if you know any more than that. Kate is a law enforcement officer as well, so she might know more.
Sorry, I lost my camera for a moment. Yeah, so our big concern is that food is stored properly. There is a thriving and growing grizzly and black bear population in Glacier National Park, which makes it really special, but the bears are everywhere. And so in our designated campsites, we'll have food storage boxes in the front country, and then we have bear hangs that are set up at the wilderness sites. And so if you've got a bear can on your back, I would say put your food in the bear can and make sure it's left in that food prep area. But if you have like a support person and you can drop the weight of your bear can, through Glacier, you can just put your food in a dry bag and hang it and shave a couple of ounces. So those are your two options. And ultimately, that food, whether it's hung or that bear can is on the ground at the bear hang, it just needs to be in that food prep area, which is where we consolidate all the smelly stuff. And then we have everyone sleep separately.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're gonna wrap up here. We appreciate all of the really thoughtful, thorough questions, and for everyone that participated tonight. I'm going to pass it along to Teresa to finish off the evening. I do want to read just a couple nice comments from folks for the National Park Service before handing it to Teresa. There's just a lot of appreciation for you, Brian and Kate, and for everything that you do for our public lands. So thanks.
Thanks, Liz, and thank you everybody for coming tonight. I'm Teresa Martinez. I'm Executive Director of the Continental Divide Trail Coalition, and I'm coming in tonight from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And yes, a big thank you to Kate and Brian and everyone at Glacier National Park. We had the pleasure of hiking with some of Kate's wilderness rangers last summer, and it was in Glacier. It was a lovely time, and it was great to just strengthen the relationships that we have and really find how much we all are really working in the same direction to ensure these amazing places that the trail connects remain amazing forever. And so we know it's a big job, and we're happy to partner with you and hope that that we have a great season ahead. I also wanted to thank all the CDTC staff and Danny, Noel specifically for putting all of this together, Audra for emceeing, and Liz and Dan and everyone else who presented. Thanks for being incredibly great at what you do and sharing so much good information with everybody who's looking to hike this trail this year. I thought I would share some words looking back as you all look forward to your big trips on the CDT. And I wanted to share that in 1966, the Trails for America was published by the Bureau of Outdoor Recreation, and it was a report on the nationwide trail study, which recommended the establishment of the National Trail System, and which was a system of trails, including things like the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail at the time, for those who wish to walk, hike, ride, horseback, and bicycle. And as part of that system, the report recommended the establishment of a limited number of national scenic trails, long extended pathways traversing the most natural and scenic portions of our country and providing the recreationists with exceptional outdoor opportunities. These routes would provide trail access to large areas of our nation and to large numbers of our population. And they would be the stimulus for, they hoped, the major axis of an extensive network of trails branching out to our most attractive lands and calling attention and urging us to make wise use of our rich natural heritage. That led to the development of the Continental Divide Trail as a recommended addition to the National Scenic Trails System. And that included that the CDT Trailway would make available numerous additional outdoor recreational experiences, and that trail users would wind their way through some of the most spectacular scenery in the United States and have an opportunity to enjoy a greater diversity of physical and natural qualities than found on any other extended trail. The route of the Continental Divide Trail would cross 5 ecological life zones where visitors would find much of the topography, climate, vegetation, and wildlife for which the Rocky Mountain West is noted. These areas through which the trail would pass are also rich in the heritage and life of the Rocky Mountains. And the trail traverses lands of historical and cultural importance. I think Dan shared some of this earlier in the presentation. The trail would be developed to provide the recreationists with the examples of past periods of American development, examples of the many ways in which we now use our lands, as well as ways in which we can make better use of our resources through public awareness and appreciation of environmental relationships and good resource management practices. In the 1976 study report, a little further on, these words were written to describe the CDT. And I think it's some of the most beautiful words ever included in any national trail designation. And that is, the trail experience on or near the divide is an intimate one, for one can walk or ride horseback across vast fields of wildflowers, contemplate a story dating from the dawn of Earth's history. The story began when a portion of the earth was thrust upward, creating the sharp, precipitous peaks that were sculptured into rich landforms, leaving sparkling lakes, crystal clear streams, and myriads of cascading waterfalls. Along the way, the tranquility of the alpine meadows, verdant forest, and semi-desert landscape overwhelms everyone who passes that way. The trail, the CDT, would provide the traveler their best encounter with the Continental Divide, its serenity and pure air, and would supply for every trail traveler some of the world's most sublime scenes. And for me, I think when I think about embarking upon a journey on the Continental Divide Trail, a trail that creates an intimate experience with some of our nation's most nationally significant natural, cultural, scenic, and historic resources that create sublime scenes, I think are why many of you are going to be through hiking this year. So with that, I wish you a very beautiful, safe, and happy journey. I hope you reach out to all of us so we can help ensure that that journey is also informed and that you have the best trip possible. I hope you join us in some of our events along the trail, starting not just with Trail Days in Silver City, but Hidalgo County's Get Outdoor Days the weekend before. We're also doing a star party in Pie Town, April 25th through 27th. We are really thrilled that we get to work so closely with so many of our communities, expanding not just the trail for through hikers, but for day hikers and families and overnight hikers and long distance section hikers, as much as we are doing these days. So thank you all for being here tonight. Have a great evening, have a great hike, and please reach out whenever you need any information. Thanks.